So we talk about which player is more important for the Clippers to re-sign. And when we say that, we want to focus on Reggie Jackson or Marcus Morris. Now, before we get into everything like that, please like, subscribe, also hit the notification bell to get the newest and the bonus content first, because we put out content every day. And welcome to Cali's Take, as always. Appreciate you. So let's just go ahead and say this. Let's get right into it. I like both players. I like Reggie Jackson. I like Marcus Morris. I like what both players bring. I think Marcus Morris brings an edge to the Clippers. I think he brings a defensive mentality when he decides to use his defense. I believe Marcus Morris can knock down big shots, as he has. And I believe he's one of the underrated players that they've had on the team at times when he has came up big for them. I think he's one of those players that the Clippers definitely feel as though they need to get over the hump, and he's definitely capable of being that third scorer that the Clippers might need in regards to having, Kawhi Leonard, or regards to having Paul George. I think he could be a really good third player to really help them get over the hump and be a championship team. Now, as far as Reggie Jackson, I want to say this. I didn't believe in Reggie Jackson at first. I didn't see what Reggie Jackson's value would be to this team. Ultimately, I saw him being a good additive piece to the team in regards to how he plays and, just the way, he can, get to the basket, get his own shot. He doesn't necessarily need somebody to assist him or get him the basketball in certain spots for him to be effective. He's always been a player where he's had a handle. He can get to the rim and, he's pretty slick with the basketball, of course, but he's also, a pretty decent shooter. The only thing is, I didn't see the playoff Reggie Jackson I saw in previous years. What he showed this year in the playoffs was nothing short of amazing. I saw a player show resiliency, grit. I saw a player show consistency, and I saw a player show the world that he's definitely capable enough of being on a championship team and helping them win and get to higher heights, just as the Clippers desire to do. Unfortunately, they didn't get there, of course, because of Kawhi Leonard, but that's okay. When you miss your best player, things like that are going to happen, because that's the reason why Kawhi is the best player and not the second and third best player. It just makes overly whelming difference to not have Kawhi Leonard or to have a Kawhi Leonard on the floor, because it definitely makes you a better team. But if you don't have him, well, you're definitely going to suffer in some areas. So everything is understandable when it comes to that. It's just when I look at this situation, it's very hard for me to pick between the two if one of them had to go. And the way I'm looking at things right now with the Clippers, we can't be surprised if anything happens. I mean, we're not even sure whether Kawhi Leonard is going to resign. So we definitely can't, bid on anybody else. We definitely can't look at anybody else as a guarantee. If your best player is not a guarantee to resign, well, then, of course, every player is expendable. Every player can go. Every player can either re-sign or go to another team. It doesn't matter who it is if your best player is not locked in. So, that's square one. But at the same time, me personally, if you ask me, which player do I think is more valuable based upon what I saw, I'm going Reggie Jackson. I think Reggie Jackson is that type of player that the Clippers really fed off of. I feel like Marcus Morris is really good, and I've said on previous videos, they go as Marcus Morris go, but that's not a good thing, because Marcus Morris doesn't go all the time. Marcus Morris doesn't play consistent all the time. And it's like when he decides to really play, yeah, he plays really well. But what I saw from Reggie Jackson in the playoffs, it's really hard for me to deny Reggie Jackson of this title of being re-signed, or as being the more important one to re-sign. Because if you look at Marcus Morris, he's good when he's good, but when he's not, he's not. So what does that tell you? That tells you he's inconsistent. So if you're inconsistent, we could replace you with any player on the team, put in the starting lineup, or we could replace you with any other player in the NBA. There's a whole lot of inconsistent players in the NBA, but it doesn't matter to me whether you're inconsistent as much in the regular season, because to me in the regular season, you're getting your feet wet, you're understanding the team, you're learning the logic, you're learning how to play with your players, and you're trying to get that chemistry, build that chemistry for the playoffs. And what I saw in the playoffs just wasn't good enough consistency for me personally to mark him as a $64 million man, in which he signed to the Clippers. That contract should be Reggie's contract, because what I saw in the playoffs, Reggie arguably, if the Clippers made it to the finals, arguably Reggie probably could have been the finals MVP. I mean, he really could have been. I mean, you may look at that and laugh at that statement, but he really arguably could have debatedly been the finals MVP, because the numbers that he was putting up, even after Kawhi had got hurt, I mean, he was really the reason why they won a lot of those games and kept them in games when they were down 20 plus points. He would bring them back almost single-handedly by himself sometime in the playoffs. So it's like the value, the consistency, and the emotion that he showed, at the end of the press conference he had of, the Clippers giving him second life, saving him, that means a whole lot. And that goes a long way with a person like me. So my personal opinion, I'm taking Reggie if the Clippers had to pick who they re-sign, but it's close. And I definitely understand if you look at it the other way, but we can't overlook this, because it's definitely something that I feel like we should be talking about going forward, because both players are really good, but only one player really is more valuable, and only one player was more consistent. You know what I'm saying? And Marcus Morris has had a couple years to show consistency, but he really hasn't. And, even when Marcus Morris was on the Celtics, a few years ago with Jason Tatum and them boys, there were games where he played really good, and there were some games where he just really wasn't consistent. He had games where he played good, but, the superstars definitely made up for his woes. And sometimes when you're playing in big playoff series, everybody has to carry their weight. Now, if you're playing against a lesser team, you're the number 1 seed or the 8th seed. Yeah, maybe the 3rd and 4th player can flail off a little bit and not show up as much. But when you're playing teams like Utah, Phoenix Suns, teams like that, you have to show up. And I didn't see the consistency. I didn't see it myself. Maybe you did, though, so I'm not going to discredit your opinion. So leave any comments in the comment section about that. But I definitely want to hear your take on this one, and we can engage about it. But that's my take on everything. And, hey, I appreciate you always coming out, as always. Let me know what you think, who's more valuable and who they should re-sign more. Or, hey, of course, the best answer would be if you could re-sign both of them, of course, keep both of them. I mean, of course. But, looking at reality, that's probably not going to happen. So leave any comments in the comment section, like I said, and like, subscribe if you haven't. And Cali out.